Hey everybody, it's Glenn back in this video with a Marvel Legends Captain America Red Skull Bathwave 2 birds with 1 stone action figure review. Well, 1 Mockingbird and 1 Sharon Carter, but you get my point. The packaging pictures the ladies battling back to back, united by Hasbro under the banner of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. With their joint bio reading, armed with fierce athleticism and superior smarts, these expert agents serve the forces of justice. Then the packaging back pictures the Red Skull or Red Onslaught Bath on the left there, and the rest of the series comprise Captain America, Whirlwind, Cottonmouth, Demolition Man and Taskmaster. So here they are, both out of packaging, Mockingbird on the left and Sharon Carter on the right of the screen there. Both have quite the long comic history, with Mockingbird dating back to 1971 and Sharon even further to 1966. That's long enough that to keep her perpetually young, she's gone from being Peggy Carter's younger sister to now being pushed back a generation to being her niece. And beyond both characters sharing a tie to S.H.I.E.L.D., they are also connected by both experiencing a bit of bump of late via their live action counterparts. Sharon Carter in Captain America Winter Soldier and the forthcoming Civil War movie, and as the girl who worked at the Disney store where I bought these gleefully told me, Mockingbird is currently featured in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show. But I literally saw the poor girl's face drop and figuratively her heart break when I told her I gave up on that show halfway through the second episode. So I put my hand on her shoulder, commended her endurance for sticking with the TV show, and then merrily marched home with my Marvel Legends. So as a tribute to that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. watching Disney store checkout girl, let's first look at Mockingbird. Now, as much as I like to kick it old school with the classic comic looks, with this from the West Coast Avengers run being in my mind the one that sticks most, yeah, I'm glad they've gone for the modern comic look here. I never really understood the sleeves being so big that you could quite possibly make a tent out of them. Just didn't seem practical to have that much excess fabric hanging from the arms, particularly for a character whose main offense is twirling batons. Surely she'd end up in a tangle, right? So the modern costume is much more practical looking, but it does have a couple of nods to the older one, most noticeably the colour scheme of white and blue, albeit that blue much darker on the action figure. But the application of that white paint on her legs is a bit messy at the edge, and I do find to match up the white parts of the hips and the legs does leave her standing a little bit knock-kneed. Now taking a closer look, and I'm honestly surprised how much new sculpting has gone into her. I mean, in the comics she's been an Avenger, yes, but the fact that she's appearing in live action in a TV show and not on the big screen says something of her status to me. I'm not belittling her by any means, I'm just saying in an emergency her phone number likely comes a bit further down Cap's list than a bunch of other Avengers. So with the sculpt, her belt, the tunic with all those buttons down to her knee pads, shin guards and their various straps, that's all new. Makes me curious with all that character specific detail what other plans Hasbro have for it. I mean, we all know Hasbro like a reuse, right? But I can't really think of any characters it could be applied to, can you? I guess let me know in the comments below. But then again, Demolition Man from this very wave reusing the movie Electro body came totally from out of left field, so just maybe they'll surprise us again. Leaves me scratching my head where Hasbro found the budget for Mockingbird. Then I look at Sharon Carter and realise they sucked it straight out of her. There they saved a penny as Sharon reuses the movie Black Widow body. Makes me think her codename should not be Agent 13, but White Widow instead. Unlike movie Electro becoming Demolition Man, I find this transformation here less convincing. It just leaves too much real-world detail with the surface texture of the bodysuit in the sculpt, where I'd want more comic book styled simplicity to go with the head sculpt. Not to mention these accursed feet and their wedged heels make for a frustrating time posing her, even simply standing up. And taking a swipe at the character design with the white jumpsuit doesn't seem practical. And here I am again criticizing the practicality of women's fashion, but nonetheless, white for a filled uniform? Really? It's gonna show up every little mark, leaving her looking like a slob. To prove my point, the sloppy black paint that's been splashed on her boob Like that, she'd never pass shield inspection. And speaking of shield, a nice detail is the shield symbol on each of her shoulders. Taking a closer look, and whoever said blondes have more fun, well, they were yet to see these face sculpts. Cheer up, ladies! In fact, they have the look of that Disney Store girl when I told her I gave up on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. halfway through the second episode. And when it comes to lipstick, I think Sharon could take a lesson in subtlety from Mockingbird. With Mockingbird's glasses, or perhaps they're supposed to be goggles, here I maybe see a nod to her more classic costume, with the pointing up at the sides shape somewhat reflecting her old mask. Either that, or she's taking style tips from that old slug lady from Monsters Inc. A nice touch is that they are removable. Actually, looking at them, the painting of her eyes isn't as bad as I had expected. I think maybe with the glasses on, they do something weird to make them look too far apart or something. Flipping back to Sharon, and my favourite aspect is her ponytail. It's very reminiscent of Spider-Girl's from a couple of years back. Just has a really nice gestural flow to it. Looking at accessories, and of course Mockingbird comes with her bow staff that then separates into two batons. It's what we got with Daredevil, yet here they're silver and a much harder plastic, whereas his, if you remember, were very gummy. With batons in hand and some posing, gives me more appreciation for her. In terms of posing, she'd benefit from a double jointed elbow, but we'll get into articulation soon. But first, for an accessory, Sharon comes with a gun. It's a bit cartoony sci-fi in design and would look better with a dark wash, as without it, it's quite plasticky looking. Now her left hand is sculpted into a fist, which I guess she can then shake with annoyance at bad guys. Then her right hand is posed with a trigger finger to hold the gun. Actually, in her hand, I like that gun more than I thought I would. She is a fairly plain figure and the gun adds a bit more comic book flair. But then that flair jars against the more movie realistic guns that are sculpted into the holsters on her hips. Now looking at articulation, and Mockingbird's head does rotate side to side somewhat, although it is inhibited with the way her hair flows in the back and then in front of her shoulders. Then her head hinges down this far, but then with the flow of her hair in the back, she's not really able to look up. Meanwhile, Sharon's head also rotates, much more so due to the nature of the ponytail she has. Then her head hinges down this much and she's only able to look up very slightly due to being inhibited by the ponytail in the back. At the shoulders, the arms of each both rotate and then they hinge up to about the same amount. Both rotate at the elbow and effectively have single jointed elbows that bring the lower arm to about a right angle to the upper arm. Then both have rotating wrists and the hands are also hinged, moving down and up. Neither have waist rotation. In lieu of that, they have rotating diaphragm joints which move this far forward, further forward on Mockingbird, and then Mockingbird also moves further back. At the hips, the legs move out to the side about the same amount, and then they move about the same amount forward, and then neither really move that far back. There's upper leg rotation, with that rotation on Sharon being somewhat inhibited by the way the holster is glued to her hip and then attached to the waist. Then they both have double jointed knees and feet that are hinged at the ankles, moving backwards and forwards, and they both have that ankle rocker pivot that I love. With this being the widest stance possible each of them can achieve, still with both feet flat on the floor, and it's clear to see Mockingbird would wipe the floor with Sharon in a limbo contest. And not just in a limbo contest, as ultimately I'd say Mockingbird is the superior figure. The weird movie comic hybrid that is Sharon doesn't sit too well with me. Perhaps if I were more invested in her as a character in the comic, she'd have me tooting my horn, but without that investment and just as a figure, it just doesn't have enough going on to get me excited about it. Now Mockingbird is a character I'm more familiar with, and while not a super flashy character design, has more for me to sink my teeth into, with those batons giving her a dynamic of her own. By the way, if Mockingbird does tickle your fancy, it seems Mockingbird is flying off the pegs, probably second only to Taskmaster in this wave, so you might not want to leave her hanging. Anyway, click this video if you missed my review of Demolition Man, or if you prefer to call him Scourge, and I hope to see you all next time. Bye.